I received an unexpected text from my estranged sister, Amanda, inviting me to a special birthday dinner at an upscale restaurant. Despite our strained relationship, which had been caused by my refusal to fund her extravagant $100,000 wedding using our mother's inheritance, I decided to attend. As I entered the private dining room, I was met by Amanda, flanked by two stern-looking men in suits. "Just sign these papers to split Mom's estate, or things will get messy," Amanda threatened, smirking. I remained calm and responded, "Meet my husband." What he pulled out changed everything. "I am Michaela, a 32-year-old hospital administrator, and I lost my mother to cancer just 6 months ago. Mom was my rock, my confidant, and my biggest supporter throughout every stage of my life. After my father left when I was 7, she became both parents to Amanda and me, working multiple jobs to keep a roof over our heads and food on the table. I vividly remember how she would come home exhausted from her day shift at the grocery store, only to change clothes and head straight back out for her evening receptionist job at the local clinic. Despite her fatigue, she always made time to help with homework, attend our school events, and teach us invaluable life lessons. One of her favorite sayings was, "Save for a rainy day, because storms always come when you least expect them." Amanda, however, never seemed to grasp these lessons. 3 years younger than me, she developed expensive tastes early on. While I saved my allowance and later my paychecks from summer jobs, Amanda spent every dollar that came her way on clothes, makeup, and social outings. Mom tried her best to instill financial responsibility in both of us, but Amanda always preferred instant gratification. Our differing approaches to money created tension throughout our teen years, but things truly worsened when Mom became ill. The diagnosis came suddenly. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer, with a grim prognosis of just 6 months at most. I immediately took family medical leave from my job to care for her, moving back into our childhood home to be there around the clock. Amanda visited only occasionally. Amanda typically showed up just long enough to ask Mom for money for some emergency before disappearing again for weeks. During Mom's final days, I was the one holding her hand, administering medication, and ensuring her comfort. Amanda arrived hours after Mom passed, inquiring about the will before funeral arrangements had even been made. As the executor of Mom's modest estate, $250,000 in savings, our family home valued at around $300,000, and some personal items, I had clear instructions on how to proceed. The funds were to cover any outstanding medical expenses and property taxes, with the remainder to be divided equally between Amanda and me once all debts were settled. Just 1 week after we laid Mom to rest, Amanda showed up at the house with her fiancé, Tyler, a tall man with perfectly styled hair and a smile that never quite reached his eyes. "I need my half now," she demanded, barely through the door. "Tyler and I set a date for the wedding, and the venue I want requires a $50,000 deposit by next week. I invited them to sit at the kitchen table, the same place where Mom had taught us to do our homework and save our pennies for the piggy bank. Amanda, I know this is a difficult time for both of us," I began cautiously, "but there are medical bills to pay first, and property taxes due on the house before we can divide anything." Tyler leaned forward, his expensive watch catching the light. Amanda replied, "There's at least $250,000 plus the house. That's more than enough to cover the bills and give Amanda her share for our wedding. Our wedding is going to cost at least $100,000, Amanda added, pulling out a binder full of magazine cutouts of elaborate floral arrangements, crystal tableware, and designer gowns. It's what Mom would have wanted for me. I almost laughed at the absurdity of that statement. Our practical mother, who would darn socks rather than buy new ones, would never have approved of such extravagance. That's not true, Amanda, and you know it. Mom was always clear about being financially responsible. We need to settle her affairs properly. Amanda's face twisted with rage. You always think you know what's best. You were Mom's favorite, and now you're trying to keep everything for yourself. She stormed out, with Tyler following behind, casting a threatening glare in my direction. You'll be hearing from us, he promised ominously. The next day, I met with Mom's doctors to discuss her medical expenses. What they told me made my blood run cold. Mom's health insurance had somehow lapsed during her final 3 months, leaving $85,000 in unpaid bills. How was that possible? Mom had always been meticulous about her insurance. I spent hours on the phone with the insurance company trying to understand what had happened. Finally, a sympathetic customer service representative found the cancellation request in their system. The policy had been canceled at the policyholder's request. The representative explained that the call came in about 4 months ago, and the caller knew all the security questions and confirmation details. That timeline coincided exactly with Mom's terminal diagnosis. Something wasn't adding up. As I sifted through Mom's home office, I found a note in unfamiliar handwriting on her insurance paperwork. Canceled to save monthly premium. Said no need since terminal. Amanda. My sister had convinced our dying mother to cancel her health insurance to save money, fully aware of her terminal condition. The realization hit me like a physical blow. This wasn't just irresponsibility. This was calculated betrayal. I immediately tried calling Amanda after discovering what she'd done with Mom's insurance, but my calls went straight to voicemail. Text messages showed as delivered but remained unanswered. When I checked social media, I discovered she had blocked me on every platform. She knew exactly what she had done. With a heavy heart, I returned to the task of sorting through Mom's belongings. In her bedside table, I found a small leather-bound journal I'd never seen before. Inside, in Mom's increasingly shaky handwriting, was a detailed record of loans to Amanda over the past 5 years. Small amounts at first, just a few hundred here and there for car repairs or rent shortfalls, but it escalated to thousands of dollars in the months before her diagnosis. One entry stood out in particular. Amanda had asked for $5,000 for a deposit on an apartment. Mom had told her it would deplete her emergency fund, but Amanda promised to repay her within 3 months using money earmarked for a new roof. The roof that had started leaking the previous winter, forcing Mom to use buckets to catch the water. The roof she couldn't afford to fix because her emergency fund had gone to Amanda's apartment. An apartment Amanda moved out of just 2 months later with no explanation. According to Mom's careful accounting, Amanda had borrowed over $40,000 in the past 5 years alone. There was no record of any repayments. I scheduled a meeting with Gary Patterson, a probate attorney recommended by a colleague. He reviewed Mom's will, the medical bills, and the journal detailing Amanda's loans. "Legally, you're doing everything right as the executor," he assured me. "The will clearly states that debts must be paid before any distribution of assets. As for these loans, they could technically be counted against Amanda's portion of the inheritance, but proving they were loans rather than gifts might be challenging without promissory notes." As I left his office, my phone buzzed with notifications. Amanda had begun posting on social media, visible to everyone except me. A mutual friend forwarded screenshots. Heartbroken that my own sister would steal my inheritance right after losing our mother. Some people show their true colors in times of grief. Number family betrayal. Number greed. The post had dozens of sympathetic comments and shares. By evening, my phone was ringing with calls from distant relatives and family friends I hadn't heard from in years. "How could you do this to your sister?" demanded our mother's cousin Susan, without even a greeting. "After everything your mother did for you?" Each call followed the same pattern. Accusations, no interest in my explanation, followed by either anger or a lecture about family obligation. Amanda had crafted her narrative carefully, portraying herself as the grieving daughter denied her birthright by a greedy sister. The stress began affecting my work. I missed an important budget meeting after being on the phone all night with another angry relative. I misplaced patient files and snapped at a colleague who asked if I was okay 2 weeks after Amanda's social media campaign began. My boss, Sarah, called me into her office. "Michaela, your performance has been concerning lately," she said gently, "and I've received some uncomfortable calls from people claiming to be concerned about your handling of your mother's estate." I was stunned. "People called you here about my personal business?" I asked. Sarah nodded grimly. "3 calls this week alone. I don't want to pry into your family matters, but it's affecting your work and now the hospital's reputation." I tried explaining the situation, but even as the words left my mouth, I could see how it sounded. A stereotypical inheritance dispute between sisters, each claiming the other was lying. "I think you need some time to sort this out," Sarah concluded. "I'm placing you on administrative leave for 2 weeks. Use the time to resolve these issues, Michaela." That afternoon, I met my husband Dave for lunch at our favorite diner. Dave and I had been married for just 8 months, having had a small, intimate ceremony that Amanda had refused to attend because it wasn't special enough. Dave worked as a contractor with his own small but successful business, and his practical nature had been what attracted me to him from the start. "She's systematically destroying my reputation," I explained, pushing my untouched sandwich away. "I could lose my job over this." Dave reached across the table to take my hand. "What if we hired a private investigator? Amanda and Tyler must have a reason for being so desperate for cash. If we understand what we're really dealing with, we can protect ourselves better." The PI Dave found was a retired police detective named Frank. It took just 1 week to uncover the truth. Amanda and Tyler weren't just planning an extravagant wedding, they were drowning in debt. They had multiple maxed-out credit cards, were 3 months behind on rent, and had a pattern of buy now, pay later purchases that had spiraled out of control. But the real problem was Tyler's gambling. He'd started with sports betting apps, but had graduated to underground poker games with dangerous people. According to Frank's sources, Tyler owed over $7,000 to a loan shark known for violent collection methods. "They don't need wedding money," Frank explained, showing us his report. "They need to pay off these debts before Tyler gets hurt. Or worse." I felt sick imagining Amanda caught up in such a dangerous situation. Despite everything she'd done, she was still my sister, and the thought of her in danger shook me to my core. Armed with the PI's information, Dave and I developed a plan. We would confront Amanda with what we knew, offer to help her get financial counseling, and maybe even legal protection from Tyler's dangerous connections. But we would stand firm on properly executing Mom's estate according to her wishes. Before we could implement our plan, a certified letter arrived from an attorney I'd never heard of, alleging that I was misappropriating estate assets and failing to execute the will in good faith. The letter demanded an immediate accounting of all estate transactions and threatened court action. I called Gary Patterson immediately. "They're trying to intimidate you," he explained after reviewing the letter. "This attorney isn't even a probate specialist, but we should prepare for the possibility that your sister might actually file a lawsuit." That same week, I drove by our mother's house to check on things, only to find the front yard vandalized. Red spray paint covered the garage door, spelling out "thief" in 3-foot-tall letters. The mailbox had been smashed, and someone had thrown eggs at the porch. I called the police, and while waiting for them to arrive, I checked the security camera Dave had installed after Mom's death. The footage clearly showed a car pulling up at 2 a.m, a white sports car with a distinctive dent in the passenger door. Tyler's car. When the police officer arrived, I showed him the footage. "That's my sister's fiancé's car," I explained. "I can prove it." The officer looked sympathetic but shook his head. "The video doesn't show the driver clearly, and we can't see the license plate. There's not enough here to make an arrest, but we'll file a report." 3 days after the vandalism, Amanda called. Her voice sounded different, subdued, even tearful. "Michaela, I think we need to talk," she said. "I've had some time to think about things." Despite Dave's warnings to be careful, I agreed to meet Amanda at a coffee shop halfway between our homes. Part of me hoped that she'd had a genuine change of heart, that we could find a way to repair our relationship despite everything that had happened. Amanda arrived looking nothing like her usual polished self. Her hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, her face free of makeup, and her clothes were wrinkled. Her eyes were red-rimmed as though she'd been crying. "I broke up with Tyler," she announced after ordering her coffee. "You were right about him. He has a gambling problem, and I had no idea how bad it was until I found out he'd been taking cash advances on my credit cards to pay his debts." She dabbed at her eyes with a napkin. "I'm so sorry, Michaela. I was horrible to you. I was just desperate because Tyler kept saying we needed the money for the wedding, but I think now he just wanted it for his gambling debts." The apology seemed sincere, and the story aligned with what the PI had discovered. Could she really have seen the light? "Tyler's been associating with some scary people," Amanda continued, lowering her voice. "They came to our apartment yesterday looking for him, but he wasn't there. They threatened me, said I was responsible for his debts since we were engaged." She shuddered visibly. "I'm scared, Michaela. I don't know what to do." My protective instincts flared up despite everything she'd done. "Where are you staying now?" I asked. "A motel," she said, looking down at her hands. but I only have enough money for a few more nights. I knew Dave would object, but I couldn't leave my sister in danger. You can stay with us temporarily, I offered, just until you get back on your feet. Relief flooded Amanda's face. Thank you so much. You always were the responsible one. I should have listened to you and Mom all along. That night, I made up the guest room while Dave expressed his concerns. I understand wanting to help her, he said. But after everything she's done, how can we trust her in our home? She's genuinely scared, Dave. You didn't see her face, and she's still my sister. Just promise me you'll be careful, he urged. Don't share any financial information or passwords while she's here. I agreed to his precautions, though I felt a little guilty for not fully trusting Amanda's apparent reformation. We kept our important documents in our bedroom and made sure our computers were password protected. For 3 days, Amanda was the perfect houseguest. She kept to herself, offered to help with cooking and cleaning, and expressed constant gratitude for our help. She spoke of getting counseling for her spending habits and finding a steady job. On the 4th morning, I woke earlier than usual with a nagging headache. Walking to the kitchen for water, I noticed the guest room door standing open, the bed unslept in. A quick search confirmed my worst fear. Amanda was gone. So were my grandmother's pearl earrings from my jewelry box, $200 in emergency cash from Dave's sock drawer, and my laptop. When Dave checked his own computer, he found it had been accessed overnight, his password somehow compromised. Rushing to check my online banking, I discovered $30,000 was missing from my personal account, a transfer made at 2 a.m. to an account I didn't recognize. I immediately called the bank's fraud department, then tried to access the estate account. There, I found a pending transfer for the remaining balance, nearly $140,000 after the medical bills had been paid. I managed to cancel it just in time. The bank representative confirmed the request had been made only 20 minutes earlier. We have security camera footage of all transactions, the bank manager informed me when I visited in person that afternoon. I can confirm it was a woman matching the description of your sister who made the withdrawal from your personal account early this morning. The police took my report and issued a warrant for Amanda's arrest on charges of theft and fraud, but there was no trace of her. It was as though she'd vanished. That evening, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Tyler owes us now. You do too. Payment expected in full. We know where you live. I showed the message to Dave, my hands shaking. They think we're connected to Tyler's debts now, I said. Dave immediately called Frank, the PI, who advised us to temporarily relocate for our safety. These people don't mess around, he warned. Stay with a friend for a few days while we sort this out. The next morning, Dave installed additional security cameras around our apartment before we left to stay with his brother in the next town over. It was just the beginning of what would become the most stressful period of my life. The $30,000 Amanda stole represented nearly all of my personal savings, money I'd been carefully setting aside for years. The bank initiated an investigation, but warned me that recovery might be impossible since I had willingly given Amanda access to my home. While I fought to recover my stolen money, Amanda opened multiple credit card accounts in my name, racking up thousands in charges before I caught on. I spent hours each day on the phone with credit card companies, filing fraud reports, and trying to repair my rapidly deteriorating credit score. Strange cars began appearing outside our apartment building. Different vehicles, but similar patterns. They would park for hours, sometimes with men sitting inside, watching our building. One night, a black SUV followed Dave home from work, staying just far enough behind to avoid being obvious, but close enough that Dave noticed. The text messages continued, becoming more threatening. Tick-tock on your debt payment. We know your schedule. We know when you're alone. Frank advised us to vary our routines, take different routes to work, and never travel alone. Dave began working from home whenever possible, and I took leave from my job, using up my remaining vacation days. Just when I thought things couldn't get worse, my former boss, Sarah, called. Michaela, I'm sorry to do this over the phone, but we need to terminate your contract position. What? Why? I stammered, though I had a sinking feeling I already knew. There's been an article in the local news. It mentions you by name with some very serious allegations about elder abuse. The hospital can't be associated with this kind of publicity. After hanging up, I frantically searched online until I found it. A feature on a local news website titled "Daughter Accused of Elder Abuse and Inheritance Fraud." There was Amanda, tearfully recounting how I had allegedly mistreated our mother during her final days while embezzling from her accounts. The article included photos of my mother with bruises on her arms. Bruises I knew had come from IVs and blood thinners during her hospital stays. Amanda had manipulated the images, darkening the bruises and cropping out the hospital equipment to make them appear as evidence of abuse. She claimed in the article, "Mom wanted us to share everything equally, but Michaela threatened to withhold pain medication if Mom didn't make her the sole beneficiary." The outrageous lies made me physically ill. I had spent months gently caring for our mother, ensuring she received every comfort possible in her final days. To have that loving care twisted into something so vile was beyond comprehension. Within days, the story spread through local social media groups. People I'd known for years, neighbors, church members, even some colleagues, began looking at me differently. A woman at the grocery store pulled her children away from me as though I were dangerous. Someone left a printed copy of the article on our car windshield with the word "shame" written across it in black marker. Dave's construction business began suffering as well. 2 clients canceled contracts, citing personal reasons but making it clear they'd seen the news. His business partners started expressing concerns about their association. Our financial situation deteriorated rapidly. Legal fees for fighting the fraud charges mounted. We sold my car to cover immediate expenses, relying solely on Dave's truck for transportation. We cut every possible expense, eating rice and beans for days on end, turning down the heat, and canceling all subscriptions and services. The final blow came in the form of legal papers. Amanda had filed for emergency conservatorship of our mother's estate, claiming I was mentally unstable and financially incompetent. The court scheduled a hearing just 2 weeks away. "This is a nuclear option," Gary explained grimly during our meeting. "If she succeeds, you'll lose all control of the estate and likely face criminal charges for the alleged elder abuse." "But it's all lies," I protested, fighting back tears of frustration. "Mom's doctors can testify about the true cause of those bruises." Gary's expression remained somber. "I've already reached out to Dr. Lewis. He's unwilling to testify, citing concerns about potential lawsuits, regardless of which side he supports. Without medical testimony countering those photos, we're in a very difficult position." I sank deeper into depression with each passing day. I stopped leaving our apartment except when absolutely necessary. I lost weight, my clothes hanging loosely on my frame. Sleep became almost impossible, my mind racing with worst-case scenarios whenever I closed my eyes. Dave tried his best to support me, but I could see the strain taking its toll on him too. Dark circles formed under his eyes, as he worked longer hours trying to rebuild his business reputation, while handling all our errands and appointments. One evening, as we sat at our kitchen table reviewing our dwindling finances, Dave gently took my hands. "We'll get through this," he promised. "We just need to hold on until the truth comes out." I wanted to believe him, but hope seemed increasingly distant. Amanda had destroyed my reputation, stolen my savings, ruined my credit, and was poised to take control of what remained of my mother's estate. And somewhere in the background, Tyler's dangerous creditors were still watching, still waiting to collect a debt we never owed. Just when I had reached my lowest point, convinced that there was no way out of the nightmare, my phone rang with an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Is this Michaela?" asked a woman's voice I didn't immediately recognize. "Yes," I replied cautiously. "Who's calling?" "This is Susan Jenkins. I was your mother's hospice nurse during her final weeks. I remembered her, a kind-faced woman with gentle hands who had taught me how to administer Mom's pain medication and recognize signs of distress. I've seen the news stories," she continued, her voice hardening slightly, "and I can't stay silent any longer. I have evidence you need to see." The next morning, Dave and I met Susan at a quiet cafe across town. She looked nervous, constantly scanning the room as if afraid of being seen with us. "I should have come forward sooner," she began, pulling out a tablet from her bag. "But Amanda threatened to report me for medication errors if I spoke to anyone about what I saw. I couldn't risk losing my nursing license. It's all I have. She unlocked her tablet and slid it across the table. But I can't let this continue. What she's doing to you is wrong, Susan said quietly. The video on the screen showed my mother's bedroom, the hospice bed where she had spent her final days. The timestamp indicated it was from 3 weeks before she passed away. Mom appeared to be sleeping, her thin frame barely making a bump under the blankets. Amanda entered the frame, checking over her shoulder before approaching the bed. She shook Mom awake roughly. "Mom, you need to sign these papers," Amanda's voice demanded from the tablet speaker. "It's just some insurance stuff," she added. Mom stirred weakly. "What papers? Where's Michaela?" "Michaela's busy. This can't wait. It's just saying you want everything split equally between us. You want that, right?" Mom's voice was barely audible. "But the will already—" "This is different," Amanda insisted, her voice growing sharp. "Just sign it. Don't you love me as much as her?" The video showed Mom's confusion as Amanda pressed a pen into her hand and guided it across the paper. Mom was clearly not fully conscious, her movements uncoordinated from pain medication. "I recorded this secretly," Susan explained as the video ended. "I was worried about elder abuse, but I wasn't sure who to report it to. Then when your mother passed and things seemed to be following the proper legal channels, I thought it wasn't necessary." "Do you know what document she was signing?" Dave asked. Susan nodded. "I managed to get a glimpse later. It looked like a handwritten will, very simple, stating that Amanda should receive 75% of the estate, with you getting just 25%. But your mother never signed it properly. Her hand was shaking too badly, and the signature was just a scribble. I felt a mix of emotions. Horror at seeing my mother manipulated in such a vulnerable state, but also relief at having concrete evidence of Amanda's true character. "There's more," Susan said, swiping to another video. This one showed Amanda going through Mom's purse while she slept, removing her wallet, and taking photos of all her identification cards and insurance information. "This was just days after the terminal diagnosis," Susan explained. "I think she was gathering information to access your mother's accounts." Gary reviewed the videos the next day, his expression brightening for the first time in weeks. "This is exactly what we needed. Susan's testimony, combined with these videos, will completely discredit Amanda's claims." He advised building a comprehensive case before confronting Amanda or presenting anything in court. "We need to be strategic," he said. "Your sister has shown she's willing to go to extreme lengths to get what she wants. We need to be prepared for her next move." 2 days later, I received a text message from Amanda. "Hey sis, I feel terrible about everything. It's my birthday next week and I'd like to make peace. Dinner at Costello's Thursday at 7, just you and me." I showed the message to Gary, who immediately recognized it as a trap. Costello's is an expensive restaurant with private dining rooms. "Perfect setting for an ambush," Dave agreed. "She's planning something. This is too convenient after everything she's done." Frank, who had continued monitoring Amanda's activities, confirmed our suspicions. "She's been meeting with a man named Jack Peterson. He poses as a legitimate business attorney, but has a history of involvement in inheritance scams and financial fraud across 3 states. He was seen with her at Costello's yesterday, checking out the private dining rooms." We also learned that Tyler was no longer in the picture. He had checked himself into a rehabilitation facility for gambling addiction and, according to Frank's sources, had completely cut ties with Amanda. "Tyler might actually be willing to help us," Frank suggested. "He has nothing to lose at this point, and he might want to clear his conscience." Dave arranged a meeting with Tyler at the rehab center. He returned with valuable information. Tyler confirmed that Amanda had been planning to scam her own family even before their mother's diagnosis. "She was always talking about the big inheritance she was going to get," Tyler reported. "When your mom got sick, Amanda saw it as an opportunity to speed things up. She didn't love me. She was using me as part of her cover story while she was actually involved with Jack." Tyler explained that Jack specialized in pressuring vulnerable people into signing away assets. Their usual tactic was to create a situation where the victim felt cornered and outnumbered, then present legal-looking documents with urgent demands for signatures. "They're planning to trap you at that birthday dinner," Tyler warned. "Jack will pose as a lawyer, probably bring an associate to intimidate you. They'll have papers ready, and will threaten all kinds of legal consequences if you don't sign immediately. Armed with this information, we formulated a careful counter-strategy. I would accept the dinner invitation, pretending to be unaware of the setup. Dave, whom Amanda had never met in person, would position himself nearby, ready to intervene at the right moment. The final piece fell into place when Dave revealed that the owner of Costello's, Mario, was a former client who owed him a favor. Mario has agreed to let us set up recording devices in the private dining room, Dave explained. We'll have everything on video. Gary arranged for a police detective familiar with Jack's previous scams to be on standby. All we needed to do was let Amanda and Jack incriminate themselves, which, based on their history, seemed inevitable. As Thursday approached, my anxiety peaked. What if something went wrong? What if they realized it was a trap? What if Jack's associates decide to resort to violence? I asked, my worry creeping in. Dave held me close the night before the dinner. Remember, I'll be right there with you, even if you can't see me at first. We have evidence. We have the law on our side, and we have the truth. Amanda has none of those things. For the first time in months, I allowed myself to believe that this nightmare might finally be coming to an end. Thursday evening arrived with a strange sense of calm settling over me. I dressed carefully in a simple black dress, wanting to appear neither too confident nor too defeated. Dave dropped me off 2 blocks from Costello's, continuing on to park near the service entrance where Mario would let him in. The restaurant was bustling with its usual Thursday night crowd, the air filled with the aroma of garlic, wine, and freshly baked bread. The hostess, briefed by Mario, gave me a subtle nod of reassurance as she led me toward the private dining section in the back. Your sister is already waiting, she informed me loudly enough for anyone nearby to hear, maintaining our cover. The private dining room was dimly lit, with a single table set for 3 in the center. Amanda sat facing the door, wearing a deep red dress that contrasted sharply with her pale blonde hair. Beside her was a man in an expensive gray suit, Jack, presumably, and across from them sat another man in a black suit, arranging papers on the table. I took a deep breath and stepped into the room. Amanda's face broke into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Michaela, I'm so glad you came. She gestured to the empty chair across from her. Please sit down. As I took my seat, Amanda continued with artificial cheerfulness. I want you to meet my friends. This is Jack Peterson, an attorney specializing in estate law, and his associate, Marcus. Jack extended his hand, his grip firm, too controlling. Pleasure to meet you, Michaela. Amanda has told me so much about you. I maintained a neutral expression, allowing them to believe I was clueless about their scheme. I thought this was supposed to be just the 2 of us, Amanda. A birthday celebration? Amanda's smile tightened. Well, we do have some business to discuss first. Just a few papers to sign, and then we can celebrate properly. Marcus slid a document across the table. This is a simple agreement to divide your mother's estate equally between you and Amanda. It also drops all pending legal actions against you. Pending legal actions? I echoed, feigning confusion. Jack leaned forward, his friendly demeanor slipping. The elder abuse allegations, the mismanagement of estate funds. Amanda has been very patient, but these matters could become quite serious if not resolved quickly. I pretended to read the document slowly, buying time. The language was deliberately complex, full of legal jargon that would confuse most people into signing without fully understanding. What it actually stipulated was far from an equal division. It would give Amanda control over the entire estate with no oversight. I'm not sure I understand all of this, I said, stalling further. Maybe I should have my own attorney review it first. Amanda's artificial smile vanished completely. There's no time for that. These need to be signed tonight. Jack's voice hardened. Let me be clear, Michaela. If you don't sign these papers right now, we'll be forced to proceed with criminal charges for elder abuse and financial fraud. The evidence Amanda has provided is quite compelling. You could be looking at significant jail time. I set the papers down and met Amanda's gaze directly. "And if I do sign, then all of this goes away?" she replied, gesturing vaguely. "We split, everything 50-50, and we can go back to being sisters again." I allowed a long pause, letting the tension build. Then I reached for my purse. "There's someone I'd like you all to meet first." Amanda's eyes narrowed suspiciously. "What are you talking about?" The door opened, and Dave stepped in, followed, immediately by our attorney Gary and Detective Williams. "This is my husband, Dave," I announced calmly. Jack started to stand. "This is a private meeting." Dave smiled pleasantly. "Oh, I think you'll want me to stay, especially once you see what I've brought." He held up his phone, showing a live feed from the recording devices hidden around the room. "We've been recording this entire conversation, and we have much more." Detective Williams stepped forward, displaying his badge. "Jack Peterson, we have warrants for your arrest in connection with multiple counts of fraud in 3 states. And now we can add attempted extortion and conspiracy to this list." The color drained from Jack's face. He looked at Amanda accusingly. "You said this would be easy, that she was desperate and alone." Gary placed a thick file on the table. "We have extensive evidence against both of you. Hospice nurse Susan Jenkins has provided video recordings of Amanda attempting to coerce her dying mother into signing fraudulent documents. We have bank footage of Amanda withdrawing stolen funds. And now we have this recording of your attempted extortion." Amanda's composure cracked. She looked wildly around the room, suddenly realizing she was trapped. She stood abruptly, knocking over her chair, and made a desperate dash for the door. She didn't make it 3 steps before running directly into Mario's security guard, positioned there as part of our plan. As Detective Williams began reading Jack his rights, I approached my sister, who had crumpled into a chair, her face buried in her hands. "Why, Amanda?" I asked quietly. "She was our mother. She loved you." Amanda looked up, mascara streaking down her cheeks. "You were always the perfect daughter, the responsible one, the caretaker, the one she was proud of. What about me? I just wanted what I deserved." "And this is how you thought you'd get it?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "By stealing and lying? By destroying my life?" For a moment, I thought I saw genuine remorse flicker across her face. Then she straightened her shoulders defensively. "It wasn't my idea. It was Jack's plan. He said it would be easy, that no one would get hurt." "No one would get hurt," I repeated incredulously. "You tried to frame me for elder abuse. You stole my savings. You ruined my reputation and almost cost Dave his business. How is that not hurting anyone?" Before she could respond, Detective Williams approached. "We need to take Miss Green to the station now for processing." As they led Amanda and Jack away, Dave wrapped his arm around my shoulders. "It's over," he murmured into my hair. "It's finally over." But we both knew it wasn't entirely true. The legal proceedings would take months. Rebuilding our lives and repairing the damage to our reputations would take even longer. And the broken trust between Amanda and me might never be fully healed. Still, for the first time in 6 months, I felt like I could breathe again. The weight that had been crushing me was lifting, 1 pound at a time. 6 months after that fateful night at Castello's, I stood beside my mother's grave, placing a small bouquet of her favorite yellow daisies against the headstone. The autumn air carried a crisp chill, leaves crunching beneath my feet as I stepped back to read the inscription we had finally been able to afford. Eleanor Green, beloved mother, teacher of life's most valuable lessons. So much had changed in those 6 months. Amanda had eventually accepted a plea deal, avoiding jail time, but receiving 3 years of probation, mandatory financial counseling, and addiction therapy. The psychological evaluation had revealed what I had long suspected. Amanda suffered from both narcissistic tendencies and a shopping addiction that had spiraled out of control. Jack hadn't been so lucky. With prior offenses in multiple states, he was facing significant prison time. His associate, Marcus, had turned state's evidence, revealing a pattern of elderly exploitation spanning years. Tyler had completed his rehabilitation program and moved to another state to make a fresh start, sending me a long letter of apology before he left. I had forgiven him. He had been as much a victim of Amanda's manipulation as anyone else. The estate had finally been settled according to Mom's original wishes. After covering all outstanding bills, the remaining funds had been divided equally between Amanda and me, though Amanda's portion was being managed by a court-appointed financial guardian until her probation ended. I had used part of my share to establish a nursing scholarship in Mom's name at the local community college, specifically for students interested in hospice and end-of-life care. It felt like the perfect way to honor her memory and express my gratitude to people like Susan, who provided such vital support during life's most difficult transitions. My professional life had taken an unexpected turn. After the truth about Amanda's false accusations came to light, I received multiple apologies, including a particularly remorseful one from my former boss, Sarah. Rather than returning to my old position, however, I accepted an offer from a larger hospital in the next county, a promotion with better pay and more responsibility. The hiring director had specifically mentioned being impressed by my integrity throughout the ordeal. Dave's business had not only recovered but thrived. The publicity surrounding our case had actually brought in new clients who appreciated his loyalty and steadfastness during our difficulties. We had been able to move into a slightly larger apartment and were even beginning to rebuild our savings. "I have some news, Mom," I said quietly, touching the cool marble of the headstone. "You're going to be a grandmother. We found out last week. The baby's due in spring." The pregnancy had been a surprise, a joyful discovery, amid the final legal proceedings of Amanda's case. Dave had been ecstatic, already making plans to convert our spare room into a nursery and researching the safest car seats on the market. "I wish you could be here to see your grandchild," I continued, wiping away a tear. "But I promised to tell them all about you, your strength, your wisdom, your endless capacity for love." The sound of footsteps on the gravel path behind me made me turn. To my surprise, it was Amanda, wearing simple jeans and a sweater, a far cry from the designer clothes she'd once insisted on. She carried a small potted plant, some kind of flowering shrub. "I didn't know you would be here," she said hesitantly, stopping several feet away. "It's the anniversary of her diagnosis," I replied. "I always visit on important dates." Amanda nodded, looking uncomfortable. "My therapist thought it would be good for me to come to connect with her memory in a healthier way." An awkward silence fell between us. We had seen each other only at court appearances since the night at Costello's, our communication limited to formal exchanges through attorneys. "What's the plant?" I finally asked. "Camellia," she said softly. "It was Mom's favorite in the garden, remember? I thought maybe we could plant it here, if that's okay." I nodded, and together we knelt on the grass, taking turns digging a small hole with the folding trowel Amanda had brought. Our hands worked in silence, falling into a rhythm that felt strangely familiar, like when we had helped Mom in her garden as children, before competition and jealousy had poisoned our relationship. "I'm pregnant," I said suddenly, unsure why I was sharing this with her. Amanda's hands stilled. "Really? That's wonderful, Michaela. You'll be a great mother." She hesitated, then added, "Like Mom was." "She tried her best with both of us," I said, tamping down the soil around the small plant. "I know that now." Amanda sat back on her heels, brushing dirt from her hands. "My therapist is helping me understand a lot of things about Mom, about myself, about why I did what I did." She took a deep breath. "I know saying sorry isn't enough. What I did was unforgivable." "Maybe not unforgivable," I said carefully, "but it will take time. A lot of time." She nodded, acceptance in her eyes rather than the defensive anger I was used to seeing. "I understand. I just want you to know I'm doing the work, real work, not just going through the motions for the court. I want to be better." As we stood to leave, Amanda awkwardly extended her hand. "Congratulations again on the baby. If you ever If you ever want to talk or anything." I looked at her outstretched hand, thinking about the months of pain she had caused, the trust she had shattered. Then I thought about Mom, who had always taught us that family was complicated but precious. I thought about the baby growing inside me, who would someday ask about their aunt. Instead of taking her hand, I stepped forward and gave her a brief, light hug. "One step at a time, Amanda. One step at a time." As I drove home to Dave, I felt a sense of peace that had eluded me for over a year. The road ahead with Amanda would be long and uncertain, with no guarantee of a fully restored relationship. But I had protected Mom's legacy, exposed the truth, and was now creating a new life, both literally and figuratively. Dave was waiting on our small balcony, a mug of tea ready for me as I arrived. "How was it?" he asked, pulling me close. "Healing," I replied, resting my head against his shoulder. "I think Mom would be proud of where we've ended up." "She definitely would," he agreed, placing a gentle hand over my still flat stomach. "And this little one is going to know exactly how amazing their grandmother was." In the quiet of that autumn evening, surrounded by the love of my husband and the memory of my mother, I finally understood what Mom had tried to teach us all along. Life's true wealth isn't measured in inheritances or possessions, but in the integrity with which we face our challenges and the love we nurture through even the darkest times. Have you ever had to stand up for what's right, even when it was difficult? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe to hear more stories of triumph over adversity. And don't forget to share with someone who might need to be reminded of their own strength during challenging times. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember that even in our darkest moments, there's always a path forward if we stay true to ourselves.